While your vehicle is being repaired, McCurry carries Ford Transit vans and Mercedes Sprinter vans, trucks and work vans, and more. And they offer discounted rental rates for long-term rentals. Now with 4 locations: Athens, Muscle Shoals, Coleman, and Huntsville. Log on McCurryRentals.com to make your reservation now. That's McCurryRentals.com.
I'm here with Thomas from Talkin Heating and Air. With the temperatures going up and temperatures going down right now, now is a good time to get your heating and air system looked at. Thomas, when somebody calls, you guys answer.
That's right. The phones are staffed by us. They're manned 24/7. We're ready to come out and take care of you that day.
How do they give you guys a call?
You give us a call at 256-503-4490.
And you can find you guys on the World Wide Web at
talenthvac.com.
And now is a good time to do this because you guys are offering a special deal.
That's right. We're doing $49 tune-ups this spring. We're also doing free second opinions. We offer that year-round. Somebody comes out, they say you got a back compressor, a leaking refrigerant. Give us a call, see if we can save you some money.
Thomas from Talkin Heating and Air. Thomas, one more time, that phone number.
256-503-4490. AL certain number 21014.
The Drive.
Both those guys have done a good job in what we've asked them to do, and both of them have developed nicely, and both of them have consistently made plays.
Wes and Steve.
Their decision-making, their judgment, their ability not to force things and take what the defense gives and distribute the ball with good decision-making, down in, down out, is probably the only thing that's going to be any different about them, because it's not physical ability or talent. So it's intangibles, leadership, decision-making, judgment, and all those types of things. And, both guys have done a good job in that regard as well.
Listen to The Drive with Wes Neighbors and Steve Moulton each weekday afternoon starting at 5. We are your home of ESPN Radio, 97.7 The Zone.
At Wheelchairs for Warriors, serving America's heroes is our mission. With your support, we serve veterans and first responders injured in the line of duty across the United States of America, providing them custom-fit, complex rehab mobility solutions to ensure they rejoin their lives at the highest level of independent mobility and function possible. Join the mission at wheelchairsforwarriors.org.
Welcome to Talkin' Ball with Scott Theisen and Drew DeArmond. Call into the Neighbors Wealth Management Hotline now, 256-576-4977. That's 256-576-4977. Now, here's Scott and Drew.
Welcome in on a Wednesday morning. Talking Ball, 97.7 ESPN The Zone. Scott Theisen, Drew DeArmond. Wednesday, May 28th. We're counting it down to the end of the month. Temperatures today expected to reach 80 degrees.
Any more rain?
Right now, 67. Right now, nope. I'm seeing sunshine, maybe. I tell you what, yesterday, sitting at home, around 7 o'clock, all of a sudden the old phone goes off, sirens go
the
off.
Hell out of me, man. I get the alerts, but it was like flash flooding and everything, and it'd been raining, so I was like, cool, I'm good with it.
Yeah.
And then boom, and then
tornado warnings.
I'm scrambling around trying to turn it to my local news channel to figure out where it's at. And then,
nobody's on.
And then I hear the sirens come on, and I'm like, what? Where's somebody at?
It's crazy.
And then 31 News finally broke in.
Jeff Castle was on. He was the first one on.
He was.
Yep. And then Brad Travis followed suit, and then WHNT followed suit as well. Everybody was on.
But I was like, is there? I was looking at the bottom of the screen, and then it said tornado warning, and I'm like, well, is somebody going to break in and tell me where it's at?
It's not a laughing matter.
County, and I'm like, geez, where?
Yeah. Apparently they were so low under the radar and it was it was
like a
crazy.
pop-up kind of thing, man.
Yeah, just hope everybody was okay.
Absolutely.
That's first and foremost. Hope nobody was hurt. Nothing was. I know there was some damage out on the Arsenal.
Yeah, because it was going past. They were talking. They gave out some streets on the Arsenal, and some folks live out there.
Coming right down to the Arsenal. That's coming right towards us.
That's what I'm saying. So prayers there wasn't too much damage.
Yeah.
I mean, I don't know that they ever really confirmed, besides debris. I know they were confirming some debris, and it never seemed like they confirmed a ton of rotation. Like, I mean, it seemed like last week I saw a billion videos with people recording it, but man, woof.
Yeah.
And that it wasn't quite as scary as when I was, out there in Harvest last week watching, water blow over the fence as hard as I'd ever seen it. And again, Harvest gets hit a lot by that stuff, but man, it still got a little hairy there for a second. And then I decided to go out and grab some food thereafter, thinking it was over. And then driving back in a monsoon, you just never know,
right?
The way the weather's been acting. It's been crazy the last few days.
Well, while we literally had a storm here last night, Greg Sankey and the rest of the SEC are causing a storm down in Destin. And in the last 24 hours, if you have not paid attention, so here's the thing with SEC spring meetings, okay?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Every conference does these spring meetings. A lot of them do it at resort-style hotels where it's laid back.
Beach.
And the whole theory about these meetings are that you get some of these coaches together, you share a drink or two, you relax, you talk about some things, and you put your feet up and you have a good time. That was the whole intentions of these spring meetings.
Right.
Okay? This year's SEC spring meetings are far from that. Okay?
Yeah.
First of all, Greg Sankey has he's turned these meetings upside down. The rest of, if you have not followed SEC on X over the last 24 hours, just Google just search SEC in your X feed or your Twitter feed. It is remarkable. It is hilarious to watch the SEC. Everybody is piling on the SEC on just, they can't make they're complaining because they can't make the college football playoffs, and they want to change to the format because they didn't get in this year and all this other stuff. This is what started it with Greg Sankey. This is what started the whole thing. Listen to Greg Sankey.
I don't know. I'd say surprised. I think that's one of the realities, but I spoke in July at media days asking how will a 9-3 team, and I use Georgia as a really good example given their 3 really difficult road games. How do you evaluate that against other teams that don't come anywhere close to that? And as I said, we learned something the first time through, and that raises the need for deeper analysis and understanding. If we're going to just incentivize wins, playing fewer winning teams can get you to more wins. I don't think that's great for football. I mean, to Ralph's question.
So there he goes. Talks about just wins. Well, that started the whole fire. And I mean, that put some gasoline on the fire all across the country.
And then you realize how many dumb people write for The Athletic. Like David Ubben, who used to cover Tennessee, so that's all you need to know. But he's sitting there trying to convince everybody that Indiana was so much better than Alabama. Let me tell you something, you clown. If Alabama played Indiana last year, they would have beaten the piss out of them. It would have been a double-digit defeat, just like they beat Wisconsin. Okay,
right. Greg Sankey went on to say it's clear that not losing is more important than playing quality opponents.
Because don't forget, Wisconsin almost beat Ohio State.
Right.
Okay. I'm sorry. I keep reading all this. Well, they lost to a terrible Vanderbilt team. That Vanderbilt team was not terrible. They almost beat Texas. These people have selective memories. And Vanderbilt had a winning record and they won a bowl game. Okay. Over Georgia Tech, who beat who, Scott? They beat the Miami Life Wallet. Okay, there you go. And they almost beat Georgia and scared the hell out of Georgia.
Can we call them the Miami overrated?
Whatever. They usually are.
Okay.
They're good at that.
But they're back.
Ever since, Butch Davis left and Larry Coker took over a gold mine. But after 2002, pretty much toilet. But still, I mean, and Indiana and Kirk Cignetti did a good job last year.
Right.
But don't get it twisted. They and SMU didn't beat anybody. Okay. They did not beat anybody. Alabama would have beaten the piss out of SMU too. And I don't care what any of these idiots, the Dan Wokens of the world, he put out some stupid tweet about how Vanderbilt wasn't very good, and College Football Nerd just ripped him a new ass, which I enjoyed. I mean, he just
he piled on Scott Strickland yesterday. Did Dan Woken because
he piles on everybody from the SEC because he's a buffoon.
Yeah, Scott Strickland said a committee is not ideal to choose a postseason. I question whether it's appropriate for college football. That was from the SEC spring meetings yesterday. That was Scott Strickland, Florida's AD. Dan Woken replies and says, the moment you begin to realize that nothing will ever be good enough for these people.
No, they just want fairness and transparency. And I'm sorry, but if you think that the Big Ten is better than the SEC in football, you're crazy. They've got the last two national champions, but they're not as deep. And then he tried to talk about how it was just down to the wire with Notre Dame and Indiana, and College Football Nerds, as they're good at doing, basically destroyed that. I mean, it was basically, they scored they were down 27-3 and scored 2 late touchdowns to make it look close, but it wasn't close. They got the hell beat out of them. Okay, for the majority of the game.
Right.
And again, I'll say it, Georgia lost to Notre Dame. I credit Marcus Freeman. He's done a great job there, but the big part of it was a quarterback injury, and that's part of football. Just like Georgia benefited in 21 beating Alabama because Alabama had injuries. Sometimes that happens, but I'll just say that, and Kirby Smart, I agree with him. You can't tell me and sit there and say that Ole Miss, South Carolina, and Alabama couldn't beat some of those other teams that were in the field. I mean, I just, and Indiana's strength of schedule was a joke, but they beat who they in front of them. They took care of business, but they didn't play anybody.
They had the option of beefing up their non-conference schedule,
and they have not. And so that's what I'm saying. They're not playing anyone. And so that you can definitely say that with it beyond equivocation. And then SMU, everybody got all caught up in, oh my God, what a game they had against Clemson. Well, Clemson, they lost a scrimmage to Georgia because that's what it looked like. Bro.
Right.
It looked like one of those spring games where you're just out there experimenting because Georgia beat the ever living hell out of Clemson. Okay. And again, I've said it before. I got no problem with the champion of the ACC being in the field. And that was Clemson. They won the game.
Right.
But I had a problem with another team going from that league because I knew what was going to happen. SMU was going to get the hell beat out of them. I mean, I'm sorry. And I understand Alabama didn't take care of business, neither did Ole Miss and neither did South Carolina. And before everybody calls me an Alabama honk, and I am a Bama guy, Ole Miss had the best team of those three. At least I thought they did.
Shouldn't have lost to Kentucky at home.
That was horrible. And then losing to Florida. There's no way you should lose to Florida or Kentucky. And then especially with the way they played against Georgia, where they just manhandled Georgia, man. I mean, I just felt like overall, and then there was a little bit of highway robbery. Against LSU. LSU was kind of in the middle of all of that. LSU kept Ole Miss out, and they kept
South
Carolina because of some dubious officiating.
Right.
But again, I just think overall though that that if you watch with your eyes, that those teams were better. And I mean, but the national media is going to play it up because most of them hate the SEC. That's the truth.
No, and Jeff Schwartz, former NFL lineman, who does a show on national radio now.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Says, and I quote, the SEC hasn't won a football championship in 2 seasons after winning 6 of the first 9 playoff years. And now the system is broken and needs fixing. Laugh out loud.
It's not broken, you clown. That's not what it's about. It needs to be tweaked. It's not broken. It needs to be tweaked, but he's another honk that, can't stand the SEC. Look, man.
Like I said, though, this is all just giving fuel to people around the country to pile on the SEC and be like, oh, poor crybabies.
Well,
That's all this is doing.
From Kirby Smart is like, where's the outcry when 13 teams from the SEC get in the baseball tournament out of 64?
Right.
Nobody's complaining about that. But then when we believe the SEC deserves more in football, that can't happen. That can't happen. No. Because you're scared the SEC is going to win it again, because the SEC is the most dominant conference in the country, and it's really not close. Like Greg Sankey said earlier, we're not apologizing for being good, and you shouldn't apologize for it.
No, you shouldn't.
I mean, I can't help it if the rest of you idiots can't get your, ducks in a row or can't get enough money raised or whatever. And, or where we're from, it's 32 degrees all the time. Boo hoo hoo. You know what I'm saying?
No, you're right.
Who cares?
Kalen DeBoer yesterday stepped in front of the mic. Here is Kalen DeBoer on Alabama not getting into the playoffs.
You kind of wonder what would happen if other people would have had the chance to play our schedule last year, and that would only get tougher. I know if you played a full SEC 9-game schedule, I know from our end going into this season, we're playing 10 Power 4 games with Florida State and Wisconsin this year on top of the 8 games. So I know we haven't held back at this point on, anything when it comes to playing a tough schedule, non-conference wise. And so you would certainly have to look at those things as it applies if you played 9 regular season games that were all in the SEC. The question I have is, how do you really strength of schedule as you get more and more conference games? How do you really kind of understand what the strength schedule is from conference to conference? It's pretty easy with other sports when they play basketball, softball, baseball, whatever it might be, and you have all these non-conference games. So, that's beyond me to figure out. I'm just going to play the games that we can schedule and adjust accordingly as we change, the SEC games, if that's the case.
And like I said, they never learn, because we saw this happen in 13 and 14 when Florida State won it in 13, and then Clemson, won it in Ohio State. I try to forget, but anyway, Clemson won it in 13, and Ohio State won it in 14, and Florida State and Ohio State won it back to back, and they made a big deal about the SEC not winning it. And in both of those cases, I mean, Alabama blew a big lead in 14 against Ohio State. We all know that it was like 24-7. They blew that lead, and then and we know in 13, Auburn had like a 20-3 lead on Florida State and blew that. So that was a couple of missed opportunities to the SEC, but they came back with a vengeance after that. I mean, and ripped off, a ton of championships in a row, even though, and then in 16, Clemson won. So you could say they lost 3 out of 4, but then Alabama came back again. 17, Clemson came back in 18. There was some back and forth there, but the SEC was at least making national championship games, was still a dominant force. And like Sankey pointed out earlier in the week, if we had been in the old, Final Four, 14, the SEC would have had 2 of the 4, would have had half of that. So again, I credit the Big Ten. I do think the best team won it the last 2 years. Michigan, edged out Alabama in the semifinals, and then this year, an injury to Georgia kind of derailed them, but I don't think they were better than Ohio State by the end of the year. I think both those teams were the best teams in the country, and I credit the Big Ten for winning it all. But for people that think the SEC is just going to disappear, they're not. And again, there has to be a strength of schedule component, because if the few were on the other foot and Alabama did not play a tough out-of-conference schedule with the way Nick Saban dominated the sport, people would be raising Cain. Well, Alabama doesn't play anybody. And then they always try to move the narrative anyway, because I'll never forget in 17 when Alabama won one of their last 2 championships under Nick Saban. Remember how hyped that was in Atlanta to play Florida State and Dirt Neck in the first game?
Yes.
Oh, it's the biggest game maybe
Oh,
ever
yeah.
in the first. I mean,
I was there.
Yeah, you were there.
DeAndre Francois,
Yeah,
quarterback for Florida
it was
State.
like two top 5 teams. This is the Super Bowl. Blah,
and I
blah,
believe
blah.
it was the first game inside Falcon or the new Mercedes-Benz Stadium as well.
And then Alabama won 24-7. Francois got knocked out for the season. And then by mid-season, Alabama didn't play anybody. That Florida State team's terrible. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
And then they would move.
Their quarterback got hurt. They weren't as good as what they thought. Yeah.
But we can't talk about Georgia's quarterback getting hurt. Oh, no. See, that's the SEC complaining. Like, shut up. You people don't know anything about football.
Well, and I think a lot of college football people that follow it closely will say, well, you know what? Florida State lost their quarterback. Remember when UNA beat, UNA, they beat UNA, but UNA took out their quarterback got hurt during that game.
That's right.
And everybody was like, well, Florida State deserves to be in the college football playoffs.
Yeah.
But they lost their quarterback and they don't get in. And everyone's saying, well, the SEC was a benefactor of that. But if it happens to them, they don't get in. It's cry me a river type of situation.
Well, and they were all rooting. And look, we understand Indiana's football history. They haven't had a ton of success. It's not like last year was the first time, and they came out of nowhere kind of under Cignetti in year one. Nobody expected them to make the playoff, and I don't think many thought SMU would either. So it was a resurgence by 2 Cinderella stories. And you know how people are. They get behind the Cinderella story. But it's what I've told you in football. And Josh Pate has been the same way. You can talk about Cinderella all you want, but they ain't going to win a championship. Not when you got to win 3 or 4 games. They're going to get that ass whooped eventually. And, Boise State, they were complaining, talking about how, they don't want – they're taking out the Boise State rule, basically, because Boise State got a top 4 seed last year. Who in the hell did they play? They didn't play anybody. They played, they played one decent opponent early, but as far as their conference, they didn't play anybody.
Right. Nope. All right, we got to get a break in. This is far from over. When we come back, Steve Sarkisian weighs in on all of this.
He's calling Kirk Bowles a liar.
We got 2 quotes from Steve Sarkisian. We got one to deal with how good the SEC is, and the other one on his 40-man roster. So we got 2 little clips to play from Steve Sarkisian.
His 40 million roster.
Yeah, it's 40 million, not 40-man roster. It's 40 million roster. We got a lot of stuff to get through. We've only just begun.
Kirk.
You're listening to Talkin' Ball on 97.7 ESPN, The Zone.
Would you call a plumber for a root canal? The same goes for selling your timberland or farm. Choose someone who understands your property and can help you on the front end so you can capitalize on the back end. I am Bo Butler with Southland Realty and Auction. As a guide, I have put many hunters in position to take a shot. It's time for you to take your shot. Let's talk about putting you in position to sell your property. Call me at 256-609-0512. Remember, Bo knows land.
I'm Luganville here for my friends at Woody Anderson Ford. Bobby White and his team take great pride in their service department, and you can see it the moment you walk into those beautiful new service lanes. And just like a championship team, they all work together to make sure your experience is second to none, whether you drive a Ford or not. Also, check out the gold certified pre-owned inventory at Woody Anderson Ford for great deals every day. Stop by and see them at Jordan and Sparkman or at Woody Anderson of Madison on Hughes Road, or visit WoodyAndersonFord.com.
Hi, my name is Dan Aldridge. I'm here to let you know about the Aldridge Law Firm and the soon-to-be-announced Legal Town Center. I've been practicing law in Alabama since 1984, and I also practice in Tennessee. And I'm from North Alabama, and I'm here to represent you and take care of your legal needs. For many of us, hiring an attorney is not high on the priority list and maybe a little scary, but it's something that we all need at some point. So by all means, do your homework. And if you need representation for car accident, wrongful death, medical malpractice, nursing home abuse, or estate planning, or any other matter, just give us a call at 256-534-3188. And you can email me at Dan, that is Dan at danaldridgelaw.com. Dan at danaldridgelaw.com. God bless America.
No representation is made that the quality of legal services to be performed is greater than the quality of legal services performed by other lawyers.
Have you discovered Good Company Cafe? The place for breakfast, brunch, lunch, and so much more. Enjoy brunch all day and pair with one of our many seasonal refreshing drinks, including alcoholic and non-alcoholic options. Choose inside or outside on our gorgeous, spacious, dog-friendly patio and have some fun with friends playing yard games in the courtyard. See catering, to-go options, and lots more at goodcompany-cafe.com. Good Company Cafe, 7500 South Memorial Parkway.
Isn't the story of the prodigal son an amazing story? Basically, a rowdy boy who literally wished his father dead, ran away, and consumed his wealth with hard and fast living. Yet the father looked for his return every day, and when the boy got tired of eating pig slop, he decided to return. What did the father do? As soon as he saw that boy, he ran to him, threw his arms around him, and killed the fatted calf for a great celebration. Hey, I'm John Dees, pastor of the Cross Point Church. If you're looking for a church home, come see us, smack dab across the street from the YMCA in Madison.
Listen to the Rocket City Trash Pandas all season long.
Next pitch is drilled. Deep to left field. Back goes Edsel. Like a tomato, ketchup squished it.
Trash Panda Baseball is only on Talk Radio WZZN.
All right, welcome back in. Talking Ball 97.7 ESPN, The Zone. Scott Tyson, DeArmond, 7:23 on this Wednesday morning. Let's get out to the phone lines real fast before we delve back into Steve Sarkisian, spring meetings, the SEC, they're just getting beat up on social media right now, all over the place. Let's get out to Richard real fast. Good morning, Richard.
Morning, Richard.
Morning, guys. Talking about the football, one thing is they just need to get several, even the basketball guys created the net. They used to have the RPI. The football just needs to. I mean, they got money to create a system that looks at 4 or 5 factors. Because the basketball looks, at KenPom, the net. There's several other rating things. It's not just wins and losses. I mean, a perfect example: North Alabama in basketball last year.
Right.
I mean, they had a great season, but what happened? They didn't get to go to the tournament because their wins weren't over, Kentucky and Alabama and LSU, and Auburn out. So, I mean, they just need to get something besides wins out. And you hadn't heard them say anything about that at all. But also on the SEC, ESPN wants the SEC in more ratings.
Yeah, they do. That's true.
I mean, you want the better teams in. I'm not saying cheap to get them in, but you got to get some factors in that basically looks at the tough schedules we play. Just like in basketball last year, everybody kept complaining there were no big upsets. So what do the ratings do? They go up or down?
Right.
Up. Because you had good games every. Unlike the football, you're going Boise versus who?
Yeah.
Out. I mean, in the basketball, you had Florida Auburn. You had Florida Texas Tech. You had all big teams left in the final 16.
Yeah.
Where you had good games, and I mean, the football, like you said, Indiana, Boise, SMU. No wonder the ratings weren't great.
Yeah, because nobody wants to watch blowouts because they know it's going to be beat downs, and even to a degree, and they earned it. They deserve to be in, but Arizona State. I mean, from the Big 12, the Big 12 was down. It is what it is, but I mean, but everybody enjoyed watching Scattaboo. I mean, and again, I don't mind these leagues being represented by one team, but when you start measuring it, and then again, Alabama had their opportunities and lost some games, but there just needs to be they have to weight the conferences because all conferences aren't created equal.
I think that's where people, at least yesterday, were reacting to. Greg Sankey said, "Well, if we value wins over these losses, then why do it?" And everybody instantly went to Alabama and said, "Oh, wait a minute." Everybody was crying that Alabama didn't get in. They had 3 losses. They lost to Vanderbilt. They lost to this and they lost to that. That's where I think people got upset yesterday, was because and that's why they were putting Alabama in the equation, was because of Greg Sankey talking about wins over losses.
and I know it's not sexy, but the worst loss was Oklahoma. It wasn't.
Yeah.
It wasn't Vanderbilt. Vanderbilt was actually a good team. It's just Vandy's not a powerhouse. And so now if Vandy had been in the Big 12, they would have been, if they had won 9 games, people would have been crying for them to get in because they probably could have won 9 games that sad sack league.
Well, I mean, too, if you had, like I said, the basketball guys, I mean, you get people like Lenardi and these guys, and they almost can predict.
Well,
because they know basically you have set rules of why you're getting in or what, and you'll have one like Virginia 2 years ago that, that shouldn't have been in, but you had one of 68. And so, I mean, it's kind of like if you'd had SMU or Indiana, but not both.
Right.
And, you might could argue, but like I said, when you put both of them in for playing nobody, crazy. But I mean, like Auburn lost in basketball, 3 of their last 4, they're the number 1 seed because of who they had beaten.
Right. That's a good point.
Like Alabama had, beat Georgia, LSU, beat a lot of good teams. So, they weren't looking at, who you beat. It's just like you said, they were kind of looking at who you lost to.
Right. Good stuff, Richard.
Thanks, Richard.
Yep. See ya.
All right. So how many teams did the SEC get into the basketball game? Was it 13?
Yeah, it was an all-time record. Or 14, excuse me. It was 14 because it was everybody but 2 got in because South Carolina
20% of the field. 20% of that field was from the Southeastern Conference.
Was Texas. Remember, they were in one of the play-in games because I even thought Texas probably wouldn't get in, and then they allowed Texas to get in. But yeah, there was only 2 teams from the SEC that were poor enough to not get in the tournament. So that's just the way it worked out this year. And everybody else did. And then they set records for how deep in the tournament that they got as a league. They lived up to it. We had callers, including one that's banned now, who kept even and his teams in the SEC. If you don't win it, then it's just going to be a complete and utter failure. Well, the SEC did win it. Okay.
Half of the field was in the Final Four, though, and then they ended up winning the whole thing.
Elite 8.
Well, if you take
every step of the way,
if you take that percentage, that 20% from the 68 field, and you apply that to a 16-team playoff, because that's where we're going.
Right.
16 teams. If the SEC gets 5 in, 4 to 5 teams in, that's an equivalent of getting the 13 in or 14 in for the basketball.
Well, we've already talked about in softball 5 of the 8 now with Oklahoma and Texas both making it.
Well, where's that out?
No, that's what I'm saying, because softball and baseball are warm weather sports, and so the Big Ten and some of these other leagues, they can't sit there and scream and yell because they know they can't compete in those sports. But football, they feel like they can compete. But I'm sorry, the SEC is still the best. I mean, they got the most resources, the most talent. It's the toughest competition. And I know this is not a Clemson helmet in front of us, but it's just like a Clemson helmet. If you told Clemson, if we called them right now and Greg Sankey said, Talkin ball can call Clemson and invite them to the conference, they'd run naked to the SEC. Give them the money! Give them the money! Give them the money! Red Flag! Give them the money! Give them the money! Because Florida State wants out too. They want to leave their sad sack league and leave them behind. They don't give a rat's ass about the rest of those ACC teams. They're just stuck.
All right. Well, we have got to get a break in because
Oklahoma State, they don't even care about the Big 12 right now. If you told them we're getting Bedlam out there, get us out of here, get us out of here, get us out of here. That's all they all want the money. Okay. They don't care about, oh, wow, we got a chance to get to the top of the Big 12. Now, they don't give a rat's crap. Get us out of here.
Well, we have got to get a break in because when we come back, so I had to do this. So when we come back, Chris Lee is going to join us. But you said the money. This is what the first thing that came to my mind when you said money. And we'll do this as we go to break, as soon as the commercial ends. This is money talks. Money talks. America. Hands down.
Oh, yeah.
We'll get a break in.
No question.
Chris Lee's going to join us next.
You're listening to Talkin' Ball on 97.7 ESPN, The Zone. Your Fox 54 weather, brought to you by Tellini's Italiano.
I'm Chief Meteorologist Jordan Dressman. A partly sunny to mostly cloudy sky this afternoon. Temperatures climbing into the mid and upper 70s. Isolated, widely scattered showers and thunderstorms are going to be possible. Many of us are going to be dry. We drop into the mid 60s as we head into the overnight. A little bit of patchy dense fog might develop late tonight, early tomorrow morning. A mostly cloudy sky Thursday afternoon. Temperatures climbing into the mid and upper 70s with scattered showers and thunderstorms.
Your Fox 54 weather, only on 97.7 ESPN, The Zone.
Eagle Masonry and Insulation. It's right there in the name. Eagle is your one-stop shop for block, stone, or brickwork, monument signs, and outdoor kitchens and fireplaces. Eagle also offers the finest craftsmanship and insulation, including fiberglass or spray foam insulation, and of course, insulation removal. Philip Love and his team have years of experience, bringing the region the best in masonry and insulation services. For more information and a quote, visit insulatewitheagle.com or call 256-755-1556. Eagle saves you time. Eagle saves you money. Specializing in simple and affordable rentals, McCurry Van and Car Rental can make sure you have just the right vehicle for your next family vacation, weekend getaway, or if you just need transportation while your vehicle is being repaired. McCurry carries Ford Transit vans and Mercedes Sprinter vans, trucks and work vans, and more. And they offer discounted rental rates for long-term rentals. Now with 4 locations: Athens, Muscle Shoals, Coleman, and Huntsville. Log on McCurryRentals.com to make your reservation now. That's McCurryRentals.com.
Ford Motor Company. From America, for America. Hi, folks. Bobby White back again for Woody Anderson Ford with a real quick quiz. Out of all the manufacturers, do you know which auto company employs the most hourly workers in America? Ford. Do you know which company assembles the most vehicles in this country? Ford. That's not just a coincidence. It's a commitment. A 120-year-old commitment to build in America for America. And during this unprecedented moment in automotive history, you stand to benefit big time. Woody Anderson Ford is now offering employee pricing. You pay what we pay. We've got over 190 F-150s for you to choose from with generous finance rates and the best deals of the year on America's best-selling truck for 48 years in a row. Employee pricing can save you thousands off MSRP, and with over 600 Fords for you to choose from, there's a good chance you'll find just exactly what you're looking for. This offer ends May 31st, so hurry in. Woody Anderson Ford.
I'm here with Thomas from Talent Heating and Air. With the temperatures going up and temperatures going down right now, now is a good time to get your heating and air system looked at. Thomas, when somebody calls, you guys answer.
That's right. The phones are staffed by us. They're manned 24/7. We're ready to come out and take care of you that day.
How do they give you guys a call?
You give us a call at 256-503-4490.
And you can find you guys on the World Wide Web at
talenthvac.com.
And now is a good time to do this because you guys are offering a special deal.
That's right. We're doing $49 tune-ups this spring. We're also doing free second opinions. We offer that year-round. Somebody comes out, they say you got a back compressor, a leaking refrigerant. Give us a call, see if we can save you some money.
Thomas from Talent Heating and Air. Thomas, one more time, that phone number.
256-503-4490.
AL certain number 21014.
Sports Talk 24/7, 365. Your full-time sports station.
You're doing a great job. Keep up the good work.
Is 97.7 ESPN, The Zone.
Doesn't anyone do any work around this joint anymore?
All right, so we've been talking a lot of SEC spring meetings, and they're ongoing, and they're still going to be going on. And later in the show, we're going to hear from Steve Sarkisian on two fronts. We got a lot of stuff still to get there, but coming up we lost Monday.
Couple days, 48 hours.
Yeah, we lost Monday, so I keep thinking we're still early in the week. We're already at that halfway point.
Yep.
And so coming up in about 48 hours, all around the country, NCAA baseball, the NCAA baseball tournament is going to get underway, regional play going on, and the SEC, once again, very, very well represented in this year's tournament as they've got half of the hosts.
Yeah, they do, and they got 8 hosts, and of course, as we know, 6 of the top 8 national seeds and a record 13 teams in, as Texas A&M fell a little short of getting 14 like basketball did. But we're going to talk about that and more with the publisher of Vandy247 and one of the creators of Southeastern16, which has probably become the foremost authority on YouTube for the Southeastern Conference, and that is Chris Lee. And he's been kind enough to join us this morning on the Neighbors Wealth Management Hotline to talk some college baseball. Chris, how are you?
Great. How are you?
We're good. Now, you almost hit it out of the park there. I mean, you gave us a prediction last week what would happen in Hoover, that it would be your pick was LSU and Vanderbilt. Certainly, LSU fell a game short of that, but we did see Ole Miss make a heck of a run, and Vanderbilt's on a heater right now. And this year, unlike we thought a year ago and in past years, there was a heavy emphasis, it seemed like, by the committee on the results of the SEC tournament.
Yeah. I don't know really, Drew, if that was it or what happened was just the RPI changed so much.
Gotcha.
That and I really think that's it, because when I was going down on selection day because we did a lot of broadcasts, I was tracking it. I'd done a lot of prep, and I'm like, okay, a lot of the decisions the committee is going to make are going to tell us, in bits and pieces potentially about what they're thinking. And you could see with some of the hosting decisions and the seating decisions, when those got announced, like, okay, there's a heavy emphasis on computer numbers, and that's RPI and that's KPI. And what I'd done, Drew, is, like I always say this, I'm not God and I'm not a mind reader. And so I don't know what a committee of people is going to do. But if I study the stuff well enough, then I can kind of recognize patterns and maybe where they put their emphasis. And if you average the RPI and the KPI, it almost told you exactly what the committee was going to do in terms of picking the field and seeding the field, or at least naming the 16 hosts. There was a little variability there, but like Oregon State was a team that I thought would be, maybe lower to the bottom of the 16 than inside the 8 based on what it done. No, they just went RPI and KPI and probably emphasized RPI a little bit more. So the point I'm making is Ole Miss moved inside, I think, to the 10 or 11 spot. And RPI was up there in KPI. And if you just average those two numbers and said, what was that team's average? And you just ran them off 1 to 39 or how many large spots there really were after bid steals, that told you exactly who was getting in and who was going to be hosting almost to a T, except for Southern Miss, which had representation on the committee and was defensible, to be honest.
Well, I tell you what, it's one thing we've learned: just don't ever count out Vanderbilt, right? I mean, good night. I mean, just
they're on a heater.
Yeah, I mean, they're playing phenomenal, and then to run rule Tennessee in the semifinals, just
that was glorious, by the way.
Impressive performance
without an extra base hit, by the way.
Yeah, all singles.
Yeah. Tim Corbin is his best teams. He's always, I don't know. I mean, 2019 wasn't a tinker year. They kind of had the pieces for the most part because they were an older team and they rode with them for the most part, other than a couple injuries. But he's had some years where he's, and he gets criticized for it a lot. He will be willing to lose some games in the midst of the season. And they can look just kind of ordinary at times. But his end game is, let's find out who is ready to handle the big stage when it comes, and all the shifting and tinkering and everything that he did. By the time they got to the end of the season, and also, by the way, got through exams, I always say that's a big deal at Vandy.
Mm-hmm.
Sometimes they lost the MTSU game, which is the only midweek game they lost all year, to a very mediocre team. That was during exam week. As soon as exams cleared, they had started to settle on things. The Connor Fennell piece for them, by the way, is huge. That's an interesting discussion in and of itself. But point is, all the tinkering and all the playing for the end game got them here. And sometimes you have to get answers you don't want to get the answers you need for the postseason. And I think he's done a phenomenal job in sorting everything out and knowing almost exactly what he has going into the postseason.
And then in your mind, did anything surprise you as far as, I know you said you were mildly surprised Oregon State was a top 8 national seed, but what else surprised you a little bit about the field? Did anything, or did you think they did a pretty good job?
The only one that I missed was I had Connecticut.
Yes, they were on. Yep. Mm-hmm.
Arizona State. And again, if I'd just gone straight RPI, then and KPI, then Arizona State would have been in, and Connecticut would have been out. And that's one reason I thought Kentucky would get in. I thought the computer numbers were too good, and that turned out to be true. But and this is where maybe you shouldn't try to read other people's motivations into it. I thought, well, the mid-majors are represented on the committee. They know the difficulties of the portal and scheduling and all that. I thought Connecticut might get some, maybe some bonus points for they had won 17 games in a row at the end of the season, something like that. They went on the road a lot. They were within shouting distance, but no, the committee just kind of went by the numbers.
Mm. So you start looking at some of these matchups, some of these regional matchups for the SEC, Chris, and which ones to you stand out, I guess, the most?
I think Florida going to Coastal Carolina is one that stands out. Both teams, Coastal Carolina might have the best pitching numbers of any team in the country. I do think I'll do runs allowed per 9 innings because sometimes there's a lot of errors in college ball and they don't get counted in the ERA.
Right.
But they obviously go up on the scoreboard. Coastal allowed fewer than 4 runs per game, earned and unearned. I think that was the second best mark in the country behind Northeastern. I'll get to them in just a minute. Just had a phenomenal season with 48-11. Didn't play a lot of heavyweights, but they've got just a rotation full of dudes. They've got a potential first or second round catcher, and they had a phenomenal season. I think 11 losses is maybe the second fewest in the field to Northeastern, which won its last 27 games. And as people were asking me earlier, like a couple of weeks ago, like, would you make Mississippi State a 2-seed or a 3-seed? I was like, man, I don't know, and I don't know what to do with Northeastern either. But maybe you group them together in the same regional and let them play out, because they were both on that edge there. That's exactly what the committee did, and they sent them to Tallahassee. Northeastern is a 3-seed there, and actually has the highest DSR, which is D1's quality rating of any team in that regional. Which is remarkable. And so I think that one is going to be super interesting. Northeastern and Mississippi State might be your game of the day. Northeastern was the one team that allowed fewer runs than Coastal Carolina did per game. Now, they also played in a conference that's nowhere near what they're going to see in the NCAA tournament. So that remains to be seen how that plays out. But people have seen them, think that's a really good team. And so I think those two regionals are going to be super interesting to watch just because of the pairings.
And we talked to Brian Matthews yesterday, and he was mildly surprised that Auburn was a 4-seed nationally, which I believe ties the all-time record for the program. They thought that they would be a top 8, but maybe he said around a 7. Were you surprised that because Auburn had had that loss to Texas A&M, did not win a game in Hoover, but it didn't seem to matter because they had the number 1 strength of schedule, and as you said, the metrics were really good.
Yeah, I thought the same thing too. But then again, if you looked at the RPI and the KPI, they were 3 and 5, and the committee just kind of went right. Well, they didn't go right down the line because you had a bunch of teams that they averaged 4. Texas, UNC, Georgia, and Auburn all averaged 4. If you average those two things, and so there's a sorting out from there in terms of how they're going to rank them. But yeah, I mean, Auburn's strength of resume, strength of schedule, all those things. I didn't expect it, but it wasn't unsurprising in hindsight, knowing how the committee did it. And I don't think it was undeserved either.
And I know you told us going in that you felt like Alabama needed to win some games in Hoover. They did beat Missouri, but they didn't get the job done against Tennessee. Tennessee went on to beat Texas and come back and earn a host spot. When I looked at the metrics, I felt like Alabama still deserved to be the 9th host from the SEC because they beat Coastal, they beat NC State, they beat Southern Miss head-to-head, but they get sent to the regional in Hattiesburg, and it's a tough draw. I mean, you get Miami, which has been like the stock market. They've been up and down. You don't really know which Miami you're going to get, and then we know Southern Mississippi's a really good team, and then Columbia is a dangerous 4. So kind of talk about that regional. I think it's interesting.
Yeah, I with you. I thought Alabama deserved to be a host. I think if it had any conference other than SEC by its name, it's getting in. But I think, man, they're pitching, and you know this, Drew. When Quick and Adams, I feel like have pitched well more often than not, and especially Quick, he can just dominate. And Tyler Fay has been good as an opener for them for the most part. I don't understand what they did in Hoover the day Tennessee beat them.
Yeah.
But you know, that's another topic. But yeah, with the back end of their bullpen with Myers and Osmer is really good, and they've got, you know, their two stud starters going well, and Fay gives them a decent outing. They can compete with pretty much anybody. And so I think they've got a great shot in that Hattiesburg Regional. The Southern can really pitch too. And that's an obstacle, plus being obviously in someone else's building. But yeah, I think to me, I think that's a two-team regional, and the two teams that I think will emerge from there, Alabama and Southern Miss. And I think it's almost a coin flip, but I think I picked Alabama to win that one.
Wow.
Interesting.
How many SEC teams do you think realistically can get into supers?
Oh gosh. Let me look at the pairings quickly. That's one reason I'm stalling a little bit.
No, it's all good because it's one of these things where, I mean, we have a feeling that you know, maybe 3 to 4 can get to Omaha.
Yeah.
But you know, it's like, is the SEC gonna have half the field in super regionals?
Okay, let me run this down. If I'm right, I'm looking at Vandy and Alabama in a rematch in Nashville in a super. So that gives you one SEC no matter who.
Mm-hmm.
I think Texas has got a really easy path. I think it's probably got the easiest path of any of the teams in the field to Omaha. It's almost like they were giving Texas the number 1 seed, and then they flipped it to the last minute to Vandy. Right. So, you know, that's number 2. Gosh, you got Georgia and Ole Miss matched up against each other, although I think Ole Miss got a brutal draw. And Duke and Oklahoma State are not easy draws either for Georgia for different reasons. That could be a third. I don't like Mississippi State coming out of that 8-team regional with Florida State. So let's call it 2.5 at this point. I don't like Oklahoma getting out of that between North Carolina and Oregon. So we're still at 2.5.
Yeah.
I like LSU getting out of that one, 3.5. Arkansas or Tennessee, I'd be surprised if it's anybody else. That's 4.5. And Auburn and Florida, man, they could be matched up at Auburn in the super. The problem is I think they both got tough draws. I mean, I think Coastal Carolina was underseeded at a 13, and Auburn got a decent 2 and a reasonably tough 3, although it got an easy 4. So I would put it at 5.5, maybe 5 to be conservative.
Wow.
But, yeah, I think that kind of range.
Yeah, and it's going to be interesting because I do think the SEC is far and away the best league, but some of the draws are sneaky because unlike in softball, I wasn't surprised they got 5 of the 8. I would be if they could get 4 to the College World Series, I think it would be an outstanding accomplishment. But I'll give credit to the ACC. The ACC is a good league. No question about it. I'm not as sold on the Big 12. I don't think the Big 12 is very good without Oklahoma and Texas right now. But again, I do think that there is some really good baseball played in the ACC, and a team like NC State is a dangerous squad. I don't think there's any doubt about that. North Carolina, of course, is a national seed. They're really good. No question about that. Final question for you, Chris. I know you've got a busy schedule, but it's kind of crazy. The top 2 preseason teams didn't make the regionals in Texas A&M and Virginia. Do you think O'Connor is going to go to Mississippi State?
I don't know. They're certainly trying pretty hard to get him. You just never know what a guy's situation is, and I'm not applying I know anything.
Right.
You know, to me, and this is not a personal bias, right? Like I told my wife, we bought our house, like as far as I'm concerned, you can carry my cold dead body out of here. You know, when the time comes, because I don't like change in
Right.
certain ways and moving, and you
Right,
so
moving
you never
stuff.
know. Like, is the guy wired like, hey, I know this is what I like, and I'm fine at Virginia, or does he have a conflict with the boss or something? You never know. I mean, and look, Mississippi State's an appealing job, but there's also, I think, a lot more pressure on you to win there than there is at Virginia. Now, also, the SEC is a better conference to be in. But, the other thing is Zach Selman things go wrong on his watch with football, and now he's fired a baseball coach. And so do you know how long you're going to be working for him? I don't know that that's the case. And, people seem to like him, and he seems bright, but he's also pretty young, too. And, it's been, starting with the death of Mike Leach, it's been kind of a tumultuous few years in Starkville. So that's a lot of words. I don't know that I really told you anything.
Yeah.
But I guess the overriding takeaway is I'm not in Brian O'Connor's head, and I don't know what is important to him. But to me, it'd be very hard to leave what you built at Virginia and all I would presume the predictability that goes into that.
And then with what Michael Early did in the SEC tournament, and then what we heard Jace Lavalette say and do, playing with a broken finger, they haven't pulled the trigger yet, but it would seem that they would be leaning to bringing him back. Am I reading that correctly?
That's what TexAgs allegedly said this week, and I do wonder if that impassioned Jace Lavalette monologue.
Yeah, I mean, it was quite a
the
statement.
Press conference.
Yeah.
Helped. Yeah, and look, this is a game where, in all the chaos that's come with transfer portal and NIL and all those things, and people not being loyal to much of anything, I do wonder if that maybe should mean something. Now, on the other hand, he was 37 when he was hired. I think that's really young to be a head coach at this level. And maybe he lived and learned a lot that he can take going forward, but it'll be interesting because it felt like they were going to make a change, and now it feels like a little bit more uncertain.
Well, great stuff, Chris.
Good stuff.
We appreciate it as always. We know you're busy. Let everybody know how to follow you guys, and it's going to be a busy, busy week for Southeastern 16.
Yes, it is indeed. Southeastern 16 is where you find us on YouTube. You can also find us at most of your audio podcast destinations. We do have a website. We don't use it a whole lot. So go look us up. We cover baseball, football, and basketball in the SEC and cover it thoroughly with a lot of passion. So hope people will come look us up.
Thank you, Chris.
Thanks, Chris.
Thank you.
All right, let's get that break in.
Yeah, I kind of thought.
You're listening to Talkin' Ball on 97.7 ESPN, The Zone.
The sound of the organ, the crack of the bat.
It is gone.
The sight of watching the ball go over the wall, and the taste of peanuts and Cracker Jacks. There's nothing like it.
Play ball!
It's America's pastime. From the first pitch to the final out, you can hear every game right here on your home for Alabama baseball.
Your home of the Alabama Crimson Tide is 97.7 ESPN, The Zone.
I'm here with Stan McDonald of Jacob Title. Stan, I've heard that every real estate closing at Jacob Title is a very big deal. Why is that?
Wes, I'm reminded of a very impactful statement that I heard from Coach Gene Stallings years ago when he talked about big games and little games. He said he didn't like that comparison. He says, because try losing one of those little games. And if you ever do, it ends up being the biggest game all year long. Well, it's the same thing with real estate closings. Every game, every closing is a very big deal at Jacob Title. Because when it's your closing and your contract on the line, it's a very big deal. And we understand that at Jacob Title.
So it sounds like whether your client is a first-time residential buyer or a multi-million-dollar investor, they can expect your A game.
That's exactly right. As a matter of fact, when you bring your real estate closing to us at Jacob Title, we understand it's all about trust and confidence. And when Stan McDonald tells you that a chicken dips snuff, you can look under his wing for the box.
And like Beams likes to say, there's no doubt about it.
This is Steve Moulton for Tellini's Italiano. Tellini's Italiano is located right in front of the Walmart, right off of University, behind the McDonald's. More or less catty corner from Topgolf. It's one of my favorite places to go to, and if you go there, You know what I'm talking about. If you haven't, you need to try the baked spaghetti, add a meatball. Also try the baked ziti with meat sauce, add sausage. You'll thank me. Save room for some pizzas and paninis as well. And don't forget about dessert as well. The best cheesecake I have had here in North Alabama is at Tellini's Italiano. Find out for yourself today. That's Tellini's Italiano, right off of University Drive in front of the Walmart. Located online at Tellinis.com. That's TELLINIS.com. Let's get some Tellini's tonight.
This segment of Talkin' Ball is brought to you by University Kia, the #1 volume Kia dealer in the state of Alabama. Located online at universitykia.com.
What's happening? What's happening?
Just about done with hour one. We really put 60 minutes in a time machine. I mean, we flew through those 60 minutes.
Yeah, we did.
But that's what you do. We got 60 more good minutes. News is we got 60 more minutes coming up.
And don't forget, at the bottom of the next hour, we're going to have Rob Vaughn, the head baseball coach at University of Alabama. We're going to get his thoughts on their regional draw. We just got a few from Chris Lee.
Yeah.
He's picking Alabama to win. But, I mean,
he's picking a few teams to get through this thing. And
yeah.
I mean, I don't know. Might have to shut college baseball down if the SEC gets half the teams in Omaha. Might have to shut it all down.
That happens all the time, man. These people, they too busy throwing all their weight into football. We're fixing to hear from Sark, and he's calling a good friend of ours a liar. I don't like that very much.
It's so.
And I like Sark.
Yeah. Okay. We got two things to hear from Sark. And we've got a lot of stuff to get through in just a little bit of time.
This is Brent Musburger's BSIN Action Update on 97.7 ESPN The Zone. Drivers who switch to Progressive have an annual savings of nearly $750. Progressive.com.
Braves visiting the Philadelphia Phillies today. A.J. Smith-Shawver on the hill for Atlanta, 3-2, 3.67 ERA. Braves $1.42 underdog. Zach Wheeler, 6-1, a 2.42 ERA. He's $1.70 favorite for the Phillies, 8 under the total. Phillies yesterday blanked the Braves 2-0. Auburn Tigers hosting the Auburn Regional, the NCAA baseball tournament. They're a $7.20 favorite against Central Connecticut State in their first game on Friday. Alabama headed to Hattiesburg, Mississippi for that regional. The Crimson Tide, $1.54 favorite in their opener against Miami. Mike Sennett, 97.7 ESPN The Zone.
WCZN, Union Grove, Huntsville, Alabama. 97.7 ESPN The Zone.
SportsMed is the official team physicians of the Rocket City Trash Pandas. And if the pros trust SportsMed, you can too. SportsMed provides every service you might need for complete orthopedic care, specializing in orthopedic surgery, sports medicine, joint replacement, spine surgery, neurosurgery, and podiatry. And they offer their own brace shop, in-house full-body MRI, physical therapy, walk-in clinic, and so much more. 4 locations and on the web at sportsmedalabama.com.
This hour brought to you by SportsMed Orthopedic and Spine Center. Online at sportsmedalabama.com. Welcome to Talkin' Ball with Scott Theisen and Drew DeArmond. Call into the Neighbors Wealth Management Hotline now, 256-576-4977. That's 256-576-4977. Now, here's Scott and Drew.
Big thanks to SportsMed Orthopedic Surgery and Spine Center helping us kick off hour number 2. By the way, Talent Heating and Air help us with hour number 1. We were so busy, didn't even get a chance to get them in as well. So Talent Heating and Air, SportsMed Orthopedic Surgery and Spine Center, they're both winners in our books. Give them a call today. Find them online, talenthvac.com and sportsmedalabama.com. We've been talking a lot about the SEC spring meetings because Greg Sankey right now is being painted as the guy that will single-handedly ruin college football. That if you watch and you would read X, Greg Sankey is the guy that is single-handedly ruining college football right now. That is not an exaggeration if you read some of these comments from these idiots.
Well, of course, because it's what they're afraid of. That's all there is. They're just afraid of complete SEC domination, and there is SEC fatigue, and even Chris Lee referenced it in baseball.
Right.
Talking about if Alabama had been in the sad sack Big 12 and had Big 12 by their name in baseball, they'd be hosting a regional because they probably would have won that sad sack conference.
Well, here's Steve Sarkisian first about the SEC and its strength of schedule and why the SEC, when you look at the college football playoffs, needs to be looked at it in a different light.
What I do know is from our perspective, this conference is really hard. You know, the SEC is tough, and it's tough on every level. I think that this past spring, it's 18 straight years, the SEC's had the most draft picks in the NFL draft. You know, this year we broke the record with 79 draft picks going to the NFL draft. And so for year after year after year, the best players have been coming from the Southeastern Conference, and we love being part of it. But I surely don't want to punish our teams for playing quality opponents week in and week out. And then all of a sudden you look up and it's 2 years in a row the SEC hasn't had a team in the national championship game. That doesn't make sense all the time, right? And so we got to make sure that we've got enough opportunities to compete for national championship.
Well, cue up Ray Charles. They couldn't beat him. Georgia. Oh, Georgia. The whole way through.
But he's right, though, on a lot of – he is right. So that was Steve Sarkisian talking in front of the main – I guess it's not a main room, but in the big group of reporters, okay?
Right.
So he walks out of there,
mm-hmm.
and then he sits down on Sirius XM.
Right.
And he was asked, because remember, we've talked about it on this show.
Yeah, we read what Kurt Bowles said.
Kurt Bowles reported
the Cecil Hurd of Texas
that, and we've had Kurt on
the show. Yes,
that Texas was going to have a roster
mm-hmm.
around $40 million this year on the field.
If you know Kurt Bowles, he doesn't make things up.
$40 million.
That's what he said.
Well, of course, our guys, Peter Burns, Chris Doring, Jacob Hester.
Oh, yeah, cool. Jacob Hester.
They sat down with Steve Sarkisian, and they asked him about the $40 million roster.
Here we go.
What's frustrating on that was it was a little bit of irresponsible reporting, right? It was one anonymous source said that that's what our roster was. I wish I had 40 million on our roster. We'd probably be a little bit better team than we are. But you know, the idea to think that a lot of other schools aren't spending money to get players. I mean, it's the state of college football right now. It is what it is. And hey, we're fortunate. Don't get me wrong. We've got great support. Christo Connie, our athletic director, does a fantastic job, and on our donors, and hey, people are excited, and we've been to the CFP 2 years in a row, and we've had 20 something guys drafted the last 2 years. So it's been great. It's been a great run. I wish I had about another 15 million or so, though. I might have a little better roster, but so
get two or three fullbacks for 15 million.
What's crazy about this day and age that you guys operate in, and I've watched this for 25 years now, this whole, like, the evolution of Twitter and social media and podcast, one guy writes an article from an anonymous source that says that's what our roster is. Mm-hmm. Everybody ran with it. And I'm talking real publications ran with it. And it was like, that's what's going on at Texas. Nobody asked me one question.
Mm-hmm.
Like, okay, sure. But if that's what you think, that's fine. If that's the narrative you want to paint for our team, that's fine.
Taking the pressure off yourself in case you don't win. That's all that is. You know, it's called crawfishing. And it's funny that Jacob Hester was there, and because I mean, he's a former LSU great, actually was committed to Texas before Nick Saban flipped him, but still, I mean, and I like Sark, but look, I trust Kirk Bowles. He's the one that wrote it. He's the one that where I think it originated from. He's now with the Houston Chronicle, was, with the Austin American Statesman for a long time. And look, man, you saw Texas in the portal, even in the spring portal, every other day, committed to Texas. They've got to have the highest payroll.
Is this because last year, remember, we said Ohio State spent $20 million to win a national championship.
And Ryan Day went on the record and said, I need at least $13 million. And we knew they spent more than that.
They spent about 20, but a lot of that was to keep their own players. They did go out and get a few guys, big name guys, and had to spend some money to get them. Do you think this is a case, though, where Texas has spent $40 million to keep its roster together, and also too, what is Steve Sarkisian supposed to say when he's asked about a $40 million roster? Is he supposed to say, yes, we spent $40 million to put this team together?
He was dancing around it, though, because he did say we're very fortunate. And then he was like,
fortunate to have boosters.
$15 million. And the first thing I thought, you need to be over 50, huh? You need to be over 50 to make sure you win it.
But what are these coaches supposed to say when they're asked about if you spent $40 million, $30 million, or $20 million on a roster?
Well, I mean, and then look, Texas has never been shy about the money that they pay. And I'm talking about NIL and things of that nature.
Right.
And they've thrown around a lot of money. I mean, they have to when you see how many guys they're getting committed. The underlying narrative of that being leaked was they know, and let's put this out, that a lot of people believe this is the last year of this uncapped spending.
Right. Once the House settlement comes through, the House settlement is going to say you're going to have 20-some million. I think it's around $20 million to distribute to all of your sports. That's going to be, you have a cap of $20 million. That's how you have to spend it.
In Texas,
or that's how much you have to spend.
You just heard Sark say they've made the college football playoff the last 2 years.
Right.
But they haven't made the finals because they bowed out against Georgia this year. And then the year before, Kalen DeBoer got them in the semifinals. So they haven't even made the finals. But see, Texas is really, but he's trying to manage expectations because Texas is probably the world's worst. They really are. They've already crowned themselves national champions in baseball. I can guarantee you that. Because they won the SEC regular season their first year. So they're proud of that.
Right.
They don't really give a rat's crap that they went out, pretty early and they didn't win a game in the SEC tournament. They blew that game against Tennessee because they think they're going to, win their regional. Very well may. As you heard Chris Lee say, he feels like they got a really good draw.
Well, they've
been to the College World Series more than anyone.
They're already patting themselves on the back because they've been to the SEC football championship already.
Yeah, but they didn't win.
I know, but they're still, though. They're all,
But see,
first year in the league.
That's the pattern, though. See,
first year in the league, we're already to Atlanta.
I was there when they beat Alabama 2 years ago before they joined the SEC. They thought the season was over. All them drunks. Trust me, I had to walk through them. They were congratulating themselves. And my good friend Rodney Orr, he's not going to mind me saying this, but he always tells me because he grew up amongst them in Corpus Christi. You don't want Texas winning anything because if they do, it's unbearable.
Is it worse than Kentucky winning in basketball?
Yeah, well, yeah, because Kentucky, we all know Kentucky's going to be back in basketball. They're loading up for their roster and Mark Pope year 2, and I've always said it's way too important to Kentucky, and Kentucky has 8 national championships. Texas don't have near. If they had as many trophies as they've crowned themselves with, they would be a runaway train in every sport, but they haven't won. If you take away Vince Young, we're talking about like the 60s. Man.
Are they the most obnoxious fan base in the conference?
Well, there's a lot of them, but I would say Texas probably is though, because they just kind of think it's their birthright to win in everything. And they do have a very rich history in college baseball.
No, they do. They do.
When you think about Cliff Gustafson, when you think about Augie Garrido,
yes,
they've won. They've got the most College World Series trips. Now they don't have as many championships yet as like Rod Dato and USC, but I'm talking about sustained excellence. There's no question about it that Texas has a rich history. Now they've never won it in softball, but they've come close. Cat Osterman got them to the championship series, and they got to the championship series a year ago. And
they have 6 baseball championships, but they also have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 runner-up finishes as well. So they've been in the title game 12 times.
If I want to give them something, if you want to give them their best sport, it's really not football. It's baseball. They have the richest history in baseball. Basketball, give me a damn break. They've been to one Final Four just like Alabama has. They haven't done anything. We'll see if they ever do. But I mean, they do have money. So does Texas A&M. But Texas A&M is even worse. They can't get out of their own way to finish anything.
If I'm counting right, they've been to the World Series 38 times.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. 38. I mean, you got to give them credit. I think that's even more than USC's been. They've been the most.
Right.
So I give them. They got great tradition in baseball. There's no question about that. Football, they have good tradition, but they can't clean Alabama's bathroom in football. That's just a joke. The only thing they can cling to is that Coach Bryant called Darrell Royal to use the wishbone. That's about all they can.
Remember, we were at SEC Media Days this past year. Was it Kurt Bowles who sat down with us and said Oklahoma's won more in the Big 12?
Yeah, they dominated the Big 12. That's what
Oklahoma won more in the Big 12 in football than Texas.
That's what he said. He said they dominated the Big 12 for the last part of it. Texas had a very hard time beating them, and that's why they were firing coaches left and right. So, this year's Ryan Day is Sark. He's got a Manning, a bus-proof Manning,
right?
And then he's going to have a ton of expectations. And they got to the playoff the last 2 years, so he has had the program taking steps forward.
Okay.
And this year for Texas, it's going to be national championship or bust. So, that's what people are going to be expecting out of the Longhorns.
Well, if you just take a look at it, how does it set up for? I mean, and we are, what is it, July?
And they open with Ohio State, right?
So they open at Ohio State August 30th.
Boy, MSAC teams, they don't play no damn body.
And you better get ready because that's going to be a big noon kickoff. So get all excited.
But if they lose, just wait. They'll be woken over all these people.
The SEC is done. SEC's overrated.
Oh, the Big Ten, they're just so much damn better.
No, it is.
That's what they're going to say.
That is what this game is on August 30th. You're right. This game on August 30th, if the way that the spring meetings are going right now, the way that Greg Sankey is setting everything up and being the most hated person in college football right now,
20 million,
40 million versus 20. This is the SEC and the Big Ten. You know what? If the SEC loses this game, if you think it's bad right now on social media, on X and everything, the SEC is going to have a double black eye if Texas cannot beat Ohio State on August 30th.
Well, and then they'll start in on Arch, just like they did with Peyton, because he couldn't beat Florida. But Peyton's teams weren't better than Florida, except his senior year, and even then they didn't win the national championship.
But after that Ohio State game, it's San Jose State, UTEP, Sam Houston, at Florida, Oklahoma, at Kentucky, at Mississippi State, Vanderbilt, at Georgia, Arkansas, and Texas A&M.
Yeah.
That's it. That's what Texas, that's the gauntlet they're going to run through.
Sets up pretty good for them if they can beat the Buckeyes.
Well, I mean, road games at Florida and road games at Georgia are not going to be easy.
Nah, Georgia seems to have the number. We'll see.
Yeah. All right, 8:15 on a Wednesday morning. 256-576-4977. Feel free to join us. Got to get a break in. We'll continue this conversation next.
You're listening to Talkin' Ball on 97.7 ESPN, The Zone.
The company is Eagle Masonry and Insulation, but did you know they're also Eagle Landscaping and Dirt Work? Eagle can take care of all your landscaping needs, including irrigation, sod work, and planting, both plants and trees. On the dirt work side, Eagle can grade and build your pads, haul dirt in or out, and even do erosion control. Philip Love and his team can do it all for you. The website is the same, insulatewitheagle.com, as is the phone number, 256-755-1556. Give them a call and see what Eagle can do for you. Eagle saves you time. Eagle saves you money.
You've got to experience Toyotathon at Bill Penny Toyota. They've got the selection with over 700 new Toyotas to choose from. And they've got the extras with Bill Penny perks and a 10-year unlimited warranty. So get on over to Bill Penny Toyota today and experience Toyotathon. Bill Penny Toyota in Huntsville and online at BillPennyToyota.com. Bill Penny's Toyota 10-year unlimited warranty is valid through the 10th year of ownership. Valid on new vehicles only. See dealer for details.
Have you ever turned your back on God? Have you ever absolutely known the right thing to do and just turned around and walked away in disobedience? I know that I have. Aren't we thankful for our great and merciful God who loves us and forgives us and remembers our sin no more? I'm so thankful that his mercies are fresh every day. I need that, and I suspect you do too. Hey, I'm John Dees, pastor of Cross Point Church, and if you're looking for a church home, come see us. We're smack dab across the street from the YMCA in Madison, and check us out at cpcfamily.org.
Hi, folks. Bobby White back again for Woody Anderson Ford, inviting you to come test drive any one of our over 100 F-150s. From rock-solid, dependable work trucks to our state-of-the-art Platinum Series, we've got an F-150 for you. Test drive one today, and you'll understand why the F-150 is the best-selling truck in America, going on 48 years in a row. Just as successful offenses and defenses are built on teamwork, Woody Anderson Ford is powered by our people. Our sales and service teams are well trained to save you time and money. And because we want your business again and again, no one will work harder to earn it. Our mobile service teams come to your home or business for oil changes, brake work, tire rotations, and more. And the great thing is you don't pay extra for it. We come to you with mobile service at no extra charge. Proud to be local, family-owned, and at your service for over 62 years. Woody Anderson Ford, Alabama's F-150 Superstore.
There's power in caring when it is put into action. Each year, our bankers serve on nonprofit boards, support our local educators, and volunteer with our hometown food bank. I'm Bobby Humphrey, Vice President of Business Development for Bryan Bank, and community service is just not a line item in our mission statement. It's who we are. Because after all, Alabama is our home too. That kind of commitment to community might not be what you would expect from a bank, but it's exactly what you can expect from us. Give us a call or stop by one of our 2 offices in the Huntsville area and experience unbeatable service and legendary results.
Bryan Bank Equal Housing Lender, NMLS ID 2428943, member FDIC.
Hey folks, Bob Baumhauer here. We're extremely proud that Baumhauer's Victory Grill has been serving Alabama for 43 legendary years. Our motto is legendary fun, legendary food, and we strive to make every dining experience a special one for all of our guests. Our menu features delicious, always fresh and scratch-made in-house recipes. And of course, our award-winning wings and sauces. And don't forget, our happy hour and halftime daily specials cannot be beat. Baumhauer's Victory Grill, legendary fun, legendary food.
The following liner is courtesy of Frank Caliendo. Check out Frank online at frankcaliendo.com.
Listen to Talkin' Ball with Scott Theisen and Drew DeArmond weekday mornings. Knock on wood if you're with me.
That was nice. He's back. Oh, the great Frank Caliendo.
Yeah.
Oh, he's back. DeArmond. That was great having him on the show.
Well, you know, Coach Gruden did come through the state recently to see Phillip Rivers.
He did. Journeyed on down to South to Fairhope. Said hey to Coach Rivers.
Yeah, he did.
About an hour ago. How do you think this is great? Okay. What do you think these two talked about? About an hour ago, the Memorial Tournament Pro-Am up there in Ohio took place. Okay. Ryan Day was paired with, you know who he was paired with in his Pro-Am?
There's no telling.
Nick Saban.
Oh, okay.
Nick Saban and Ryan Day on the golf
course. You were gonna
course.
say Urban Liar.
No, that would have been good too. But Nick Saban and Ryan Day were paired together today for the Memorial Tournament Pro-Am. They teed off together about an hour ago. What do you think that conversation was like on the course, or will be like, brother. I should say?
Equity. That's what Ryan Day has now. He's gone from the outhouse to the penthouse. You know, if you lose to Tennessee, you're fired. Then he wins the national championship. Please never leave.
Do you think Nick Saban said, well, you spent your money and you got the right guys?
Well, he still needs to beat Michigan. I mean, they would like him to do that. I mean, that was horrendous. I mean, you know, they keep talking about Alabama's loss to Vanderbilt and blah, 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 and Michigan beating Alabama. But I still say the worst loss of the year, when you just look at the talent of the two teams, was, you know, Ohio State somehow losing to Michigan.
Especially what they did in the playoffs.
Yeah.
When they get to the playoffs and they look like they are the invincible team, and you scratch your head and say,
I'll freely admit, I did not watch much of that Ohio State-Michigan game, and I was just in shock because Coach, Ryan Day has lost. He's on a losing streak to Michigan right now.
Right.
But early in his tenure, though, and his mentor Urban Meyer did the same thing. They had their way with Michigan, and remember, Harbaugh was on the cusp of getting canned because of it, and so it's just been a little bit surprising. But it just shows a great rivalry. I mean, come on. I mean, like I've said, the two best rivalries in college football, and to me, it's not even close, is Alabama, Auburn, and Ohio State, Michigan. Okay, those are the two, because rivalries are where one team wins and then another team goes on a streak. And I know Ohio State had been on a long streak before Michigan got hot and has won, I believe the last, I want to say is it three straight now?
Yes.
I believe it is, because Harbaugh won 2 in a row. But again, it's just one of those things where it's great rivalries, and it's just like with Alabama and Auburn. And the reason I say Alabama-Auburn is the best rivalry is because there hasn't been a lot of long streaks. And I mean, no 10-year streaks, things of that nature. I mean, Auburn went on a 6-year streak. Alabama's on a 5-year now, but there's been a ton of back and forth, especially since Coach Bryant retired at the University of Alabama. So, I mean, that's just, and Nick Saban had a lot of success in 17 years,
right?
But he went 12-5. So there's a lot of back and forth. That's why I think that it's the best rivalries in the two best rivalries in college football.
So one of the coaches we've not heard from this morning is Lane Kiffin. Lane Kiffin, and you kind of joked about this in the beginning of the show. Lane Kiffin kind of goes on his own time. Mm-hmm. Showed up like he literally just walked off the beach yesterday.
Right.
T-shirt, shorts, flip-flop. I mean, he just basically showed up like he just came from Jimmy Buffett's. Talked about the system. And here is what Lane had to say a little bit about the college football playoffs and where he thinks, in what direction he thinks it needs to go to. Got to put it back on. I was listening to something during the break. I wanted to. Nick Saban and Ryan Day were talking. I wanted to make sure that they weren't saying anything that was interesting. Here's Lane.
I think I would just sum it up by, after all the data and analytics, about if they were these different systems over the years, who would be left out and who would be in, whether that was 12-team, 16 system. And it just appeared to me that there's still flaws in every system. The best system should be 16 and should be the 16 best. And I don't know exactly how that's figured out. I think that they've got to use some of the indexes and have people, I'm not saying that because I'm in here, probably media people that watch the most, that are on it and don't have any other motives in it, and figure out the best 16 teams. Because we obviously can't play enough games over that, to be 32 or 64 or something to figure out the best. But I think as you watch this year in sports, and now baseball, softball, after men's basketball, so many dominate, whether it's the final 8 or 12 or 16 with SEC teams and their systems of figuring that out. And I think a lot of that has to do with the non-conference amount of opponents they play. Obviously we don't have as many games, so we can't do that. Because you see, for instance, baseball, these teams that have made it this far that have SEC and conference records just a little bit over 500. So I think that would be the best way to do it.
There you go. Lane Kiffin says 16 teams, and maybe put people on there that watch games and know what they're talking about when it comes to picking these teams.
I mean, I think that, he makes some good points. Had some good ceviche, I'm sure, too.
By the way, you can see Sean Miller, Steve Sarkisian, Mike Elko, Kirby Smart, Lane Kiffin, Kalen DeBoer. All you got to do is head to our YouTube page, WCZN TV. All of those press conferences from Destin, Florida are on our YouTube page. You can watch them all. If you want to just sit down and watch them while you're at work today, go ahead and do so.
But I do think true football people need to be on the committees. I mean,
That's
whether it be administrators,
by him,
former coaches, athletic directors, I think, and throughout college football, I'm not saying dominated with SEC people. I just mean people that have common sense and
actually watch the games.
Right. Exactly. So to me, that's what you got to do. And we all know this. I mean, the underlying factor is, and the reason it's getting all the headlines is football pays the bills. It's the most expensive sport there is, and it brings in the most viewers and the most money. And, it goes back to what Coach Bryant said years ago. It's kind of hard to rally around a math class, but you can look how many people attend an SEC or a college football game. And let me correct myself, just because I'm not trying to disrespect Michigan in any way. They've won 4 in a row over Ohio State, not 3. So they've won Harbaugh won the last 3. And then this year, and I think that win and then beating Alabama took a lot of pressure off Michigan for having a very disappointing year up to that point for a defending national champion.
Right.
But when you beat Ohio State the way they did, even though Ohio State went on and won it all, they still beat, Ohio State head to head. And then, they beat Alabama with a lot of backup players, and Alabama had everybody play. And I think that's kind of what left a bad taste in Alabama fans, mouths, and a lot of people in the SEC, because again, it was embarrassing because Alabama, a lot of people were counting them as a should have been college football playoff team, but then you go out there, you don't extend your streak of 10-win seasons, you don't win the bowl game, you don't play well, and you end it on a sour note like that.
Real fast, Rich Clark has appointed for this year, the new members on the committee: Mark D'Antonio, former Michigan State head coach; Damon Evans, athletic director at Maryland; Ivan Maisel, he's now on the committee; Wesley Walls is on the committee. Yes, that Wesley Walls. And Chris Massaro, athletics director at Middle Tennessee. Those have been some new appointees to the College Football Playoff Committee. We got to get a break in. Rob Vaughn, head baseball coach from the University of Alabama, going to join us after this timeout.
You're listening to Talkin' Ball on 97.7 ESPN, The Zone. Your Fox 54 weather, brought to you by Tellini's Italiano.
I'm Chief Meteorologist Jordan Dressman. A partly sunny to mostly cloudy sky this afternoon. Temperatures climbing into the mid and upper 70s. Isolated, widely scattered showers and thunderstorms are going to be possible. Many of us are going to be dry. We drop into the mid 60s as we head into the overnight. A little bit of patchy dense fog might develop late tonight, early tomorrow morning. A mostly cloudy sky Thursday afternoon. Temperatures climbing into the mid and upper 70s with scattered showers and thunderstorms.
Your Fox 54 weather, only on 97.7 ESPN, The Zone. Listen to The Drive, live from the SEC Spring Meetings on 97.7 ESPN, The Zone. The Drive at the SEC Spring Meetings is brought to you by Woody Anderson Ford, Alabama's F-150 Superstore, Berkshire Hathaway Home Services, Rise Real Estate, and Adams. We know great homes. Eagle Masonry and Insulation will save you money. Jacob Title, the place to call for all your closing needs. And by Fleming Roofing and Restoration, we show up.
Would you call a plumber for a root canal? The same goes for selling your timberland or farm. Choose someone who understands your property and can help you on the front end so you can capitalize on the back end. I am Bo Butler with Southland Realty and Auction. As a guide, I have put many hunters in position to take a shot. It's time for you to take your shot. Let's talk about putting you in position to sell your property. Call me at 256-609-0512. Remember, Bo knows land.
Is your financial advisor offering you up to a 30% upfront bonus? Are they promising you up to 10% growth per year guaranteed for your retirement income? If not, you need a new financial advisor. I'm Jeff Jr., founder of Trajan Wealth. If you plan to retire within the next 10 years, don't wait only to find out it's too late. I've seen hardworking folks like you retire only to be required to go back to work, all because their advisor told them guarantees like these were too good to be true. They're not. That's up to $30,000 up front or up to $10,000 per year on $100,000, all guaranteed for retirement income. Don't work when you're supposed to be retired. If any financial advisor tells you it's too good to be true, they simply don't have the options we do. Call Trajan today, 256-208-9000, 256-208-9000.
Advisory services offered through Trajan Wealth LLC, an SEC registered investment advisor.
Gunner's Landing is one of the Tennessee Valley's finest golf experiences. Just 35 minutes from downtown Huntsville, Gunner's Landing's 18-hole championship Jewel is open to the public 7 days a week. Located in the foothills of the Appalachian Mountains, Gunner's Landing offers you a golf experience like no other. With beautiful Lake Gunnersville views throughout the round, Gunner's Landing is golf the way nature intended. Gunner's Landing's club repair shop offers a full range of services, including re-gripping and adjusting the lofts and lies of your clubs, even putters. Since the work is done in-house, your club will be returned to you in a timely manner. Unmatched in the North Alabama area, it is Gunner's Landing. Schedule your tee time today at gunnerslandings.com. That's gunnerslandings.com.
This will turn journalism on its ear.
Watch our stream on WZZN TV on Twitch and YouTube.
But you are the greatest hero in American history.
We are 97.7 ESPN, The Zone.
Welcome back, Talking Ball, 97.7 ESPN The Zone. The Scott Tyson, Drew DeArmond coming up later this week. 97.7 ESPN The Zone will be your home for NCAA regional baseball. Alabama making that short drive down to Hattiesburg, Mississippi, where they will kick off regional play. Coming up later this week in 97.7 ESPN The Zone will be the home for all of the action.
Yeah, 2:00. You'll be able to hear that game on ESPN 97.7 The Zone, and it'll also be on television. But tune in to ESPN 97.7 The Zone. Mute your audio on your TV. Watch it on ESPN2. But then we'll get a chance to hear some Alabama baseball. They are the number 2 seed in the regional over in Hattiesburg for the 16th national seed, Southern Mississippi Golden Eagles, a team that Alabama beat 10-6 earlier this year. But we are now going to be joined by second-year head baseball coach Rob Vaughn, who has led Alabama to 41 wins, certainly a very successful regular season, played a very difficult schedule. I mean, that's kind of been our whole theme of this show. It's been talking about in a football parlance, but we did talk to Chris Lee of Southeastern16 earlier about this. This was an Alabama team that we really thought had a chance and could have and should have hosted. They didn't, but now you reset your jaw, you get ready to play, some baseball, postseason baseball, which is what you work for all year. It's a grind, and Rob Vaughn's going to join us and talk some Alabama Crimson Tide baseball this morning. Coach, you're with Drew and Scott. How are you this morning, sir?
I'm doing great, man. Doing great. How about y'all?
We're doing well. Good. We're looking forward to this. We think it's one of probably the top 2 to 3 regionals in the country, and it would make sense to be because I guess Alabama, when you look at the draw, they were probably the number 17 seed. So you're sent to the 16s. You're the 2 seed, but a very difficult one though, Coach. You get Miami, a team that has been up and down, but is very, very talented in round 1 of the regionals this year.
No doubt. I mean, Miami's kind of had a little bit of a Jekyll and Hyde year. I mean, they started off really scuffling early, just not playing great baseball. And, man, then they became probably the best team in the country there for about a 4-week span. I think they rattled off something like 15 in a row, something crazy. And, man, they were tough. And they sputtered a little bit down the stretch, but they've just got some really good players, man. Daniel Cuvée, their third baseman, is can't miss TV, man. He's a superstar, going to be a big leaguer. The arm they're going to throw against this AJ Siskar, really tough look, low slot, 90-94, fastball, slider, changeup. So it's a good team out of the gate that, when they're playing their brand of baseball the right way, they're as good as anybody. And they showed that in midway point of the season. So hopefully for the Tide's sake, they keep riding that little slump there at the end of the year and we can go get after them a little bit.
Do they resemble or do they look like anybody from the SEC?
Well, they play a little bit more of, I guess, what you would call an SEC style for the most part. They're not going to do a lot of crazy bunting, running. Like, they might sack in some obvious situations. They're going to run if you ignore them. But, like, you have Kentucky, which is kind of the outlier in our league, that kind of just does tries to create some chaos with some of that stuff. And Miami plays pretty straight up baseball. They're kind of they've got talent. They've got good players. I mean, they're in the heart of Miami. They should have pretty dang good players. So it's good talent. It's good players. And they're just going to try to kind of line up and beat you, and they have some frontline arms that can give you some fits. And I think the good thing for us is it's what we're used to seeing week in and week out. It's not anything different than we're used to. And I remember my time at Maryland, you'd go play some of these teams and it was a little bit of man, we got to make sure we're ready, because we just hadn't played teams like that week in and week out. As good as this Miami team is, as good as Southern Miss is, as good as Columbia is as a just dangerous Ivy League team, it's no different than what we're used to seeing week in and week out. And so just kind of another day, we got to go execute better than they do.
Well, and then with revisionist history, Will Miller pointed out to us, and I had the year wrong, but it was your last year at Maryland. Columbia actually came to Alabama, won a series, so there is a little bit of familiarity with some guys on your team. They've seen Columbia before. You certainly had success against Southern Mississippi earlier this year, but how does that kind of help you? And then you got a guy like Jason Torres who transferred from Miami, so he knows a little bit about their staff and their personnel. What kind of advantage does that give you guys going into this regional with the familiarity of the opponents a little bit?
Yeah, it's going to be interesting. You got JT going up against his former squad. You've got Bryce Fowler going back to where his career started.
That's right.
Miss. So there's a few storylines there, but yeah, I mean, we just know how good Southern Miss is. We caught them at the right time this last year, and they were coming off a weird weekend at Marshall where there was some travel issues and they weren't playing awesome. And ironically enough, Christian Ostrander, their head coach, is a really close friend of mine. Him and I actually are part of this thing called a coaches cohort, where it's basically 4 or 5 coaches around the country that get together every other week and just talk about different things, from culture to all this stuff. And so I've been meeting with Oz for every other week for about a year now. So ironic that we get to go face off against them now, but the familiarity is good. We know the type of team they are. JJ was obviously on staff when Columbia came to town here, so they are not going to sneak up on him. I can promise you that. And so yeah, there's some familiarity with the team. There's some cool storylines. What you hope for your players is there's emotion that goes into all these games. There's going to be emotion for JT playing the team he played for last year. There'll be emotion for Fowler returning back to Southern Miss. Like, my hope for them is that they don't make it bigger than it is, that they can step into it, that they can be focused, they can be hooked in, and they don't let it take them outside of who they are. Because sometimes you see that guys feel like they've got to be the superstar. They feel like they've got to prove something to the coach in that opposing dugout, and they don't, man. Like, I think they're very happy here. We're thrilled to have them. All those teams that they're no longer with are playing postseason baseball, meaning they've had a good year. So I hope it's just one of those things where we can acknowledge it and we can be excited about it, and then go play our game and go operate within what we do.
Alabama head baseball coach Rob Vaughn, kind enough to join us this morning ahead of Alabama's regional opener. 41 wins this year, Coach. That's an impressive mark and an impressive feat. 16-14 in SEC play. Is there a series though within the conference that you look at and you just kind of wish you had that one series back?
Oh yeah, I got about 4 of those if you want to hear them. Yeah, man. Like, I think the one that jumps off the table is just the one at Vandy there with about 3 or 4 weeks left. You go into that Sunday game 1-1, and you play just great. They got Fennell on the mound, who is just this young rising superstar arm, and we got after him pretty good, hit some homers.
Mm-hmm.
We have a 7-2 lead with 2 outs and nobody on in the 8th to win the series at Vandy, who ended up being, I believe, the number 1 overall seed now. And you're up 7-2, and it's a 2-out walk, a homer, another homer. It's 7-4, I think it is, and you're still in a good place. You get Oz in the mount, Oz in the game, who's leading the country in saves and is everything for us out of the bullpen, and just didn't have his stuff, and they end up walking us off and hitting a homer to win that series. And so that's one you obviously wish you had back. That you played really good baseball until there were 4 outs left, and then we just couldn't quite put the ceiling on it. And that's why Vandy is the number 1 team. I think that was in the middle of 3 in a row walk-off wins at their place. So, they've got a legend in Tim Corbin coaching them, and it's a really good team. But that's one you look at saying, man, like, I felt, you guys said it kind of top of the little segment here, but I felt like we had done enough to host. And obviously we're about 1 game short probably. And that's one of those games you can kind of look at and pinpoint like, man, we could have finished that thing off. We'd have been in good shape. But in the same vein, you're up 5-0 in the 6th on Friday at Florida. You're up 5-1 in the 6th on Friday or on Thursday at LSU. So there were some windows in there to where, the most impressive thing this team did, and I don't think committee members think or really care too much about it, but if you can go through this league, and I know this is going to sound crazy, but if you go through this league and you do not get swept on the road, that's a big deal. Like, you see the best teams in the country go on the road and get swept, and it's a big key. Can you find a way to go win one on the road? Because these environments are wild, they're tough, and our group did that, man. They found a way that no matter how the weekend went, they found a way to go get one on the road and didn't get swept all year. They were perfect in midweek games. They did not lose a midweek game all year. They won. We were second in the country. We were 24-1 in non-conference games this year. So really, you look at it, our only losses came 2 teams in the best league in the country. And so I was really proud of the regular season that this group turned in, wildly consistent in the way they approached every day. And now none of that matters. Now we're back to square one and everybody's 0-0, and we got to go see how long we can stay together here.
Well, yeah, but the good part about it is it's kind of funny how fate intervenes. If you play well, if you have a good weekend, and Vanderbilt does as well, you may get another opportunity in a place where you feel like you can play and that you've had success. But first, you've got to win at Pete Taylor Park. And then I thought last year in year 1, Coach, by the time you got to Tallahassee, the team was a little bit on fumes. And the biggest key in baseball, it's such a grind. You want to be healthy. And I didn't feel like your staff from a pitching standpoint was real healthy last year. And that started off early with Riley Quick being out. But he seems to be, and I know you guys showed some precaution with him in the SEC tournament. You decided to hold him out. So he should be fresh, ready to go. He's a first-round type guy. And then I think one of the most underrated things is, and he was the storyline of the SEC tournament with his win, that Tyler Fay has pitched a lot better than his record would indicate.
No doubt. And I think you hit the nail on the head. That was our kind of message to our team the whole year. This year was, man, like, we did not finish well last year. We did some good things. I think in some ways we overachieved in some areas last year, but we just did not finish well. I think you hit the nail on the head. I felt like we were limping to the finish line a little bit. And it's like we got into a regional and it was like, okay, mission accomplished. It's right. Like now it seemed like guys, and we were just limping to the end. I think that's been a real big focal point of ours is, I tell them, man, nobody remembers how you start, they remember how you finish. That's the lasting impression you leave in everybody's mouth when you leave. And so for us, that's been kind of a key. And I think we're healthy going in, and we've knock on wood avoided the huge injury bug this year. Quick and Banks going down last year just forced a lot of those arms into roles they weren't quite ready for, but Quick is as ready to go as it could be. I told him, I said, all right, big fella, I gave you a break last week. It's time for 110 this week. Let's go. So we're going to get everything Riley Quick's got. I can tell you that. Like he along with a lot of the guys were a little frustrated that we weren't hosting. And I told him, I said, man, we can do one of two things. We can suck our thumb and feel bad for ourselves, or we can go wear some people out this weekend and prove them wrong. So let's go do it. And so Riley's in a good spot. And I think you hit the nail on the head. I think the breath of fresh air for our team has been Tyler Fay. And our guys laugh at me all the time. I tell them, man, sometimes you just got to overcome the coaching. Sometimes I'd make stupid decisions, and my stupid decision for the last year and a half was not starting Tyler Fay, because I think that's where his stuff plays the best. We've tried to use him out of the pen and had varying levels of success, but ever since we moved him to that starting role at LSU, every time he's touched the baseball, he's given our team a chance to win. He throws a boatload of strikes. He's efficient. he's just been he was unbelievable against Mizzou at their place. He's been great every single outing. And the big thing for him that we've just talked to him about is there's one kind of hiccup, which is just something you get the more you start, is just he would cruise, and then the fifth or fourth, fifth, sixth, something like somewhere in there, you would have that mistake, whether it's the leadoff walk, whether it's the error, whether it's a solo homer, and that would kind of knock him off his game. And he struggled bouncing back from that. And we'd usually have to go get him. Whereas the last couple outings, you've seen him weather that storm and sustain it and keep going. And we aren't where we're at right now without Tyler Fay. So, you'll see Quick on Friday against the Hurricanes, and then we'll look at the matchup. But I can tell you, we really trust Tyler Fay on the mound with the ball in his hands with the chance to go 2-0 in a regional.
How tough was it to make the decision not to use Riley Quick in that SEC baseball tournament?
Right.
He wanted to from a heart standpoint.
Yeah.
And, when he told me that, if we could, that's where the bye was so important for us, because we finished in tied for seventh, but the tiebreaker ended up forcing us into ninth. So we ended up playing that Tuesday game. The other two got the bye. Had we been able to have the bye, you're okay bumping everybody up a day. You're okay bumping Fay up one day, and Quick up a day. Now, we were able to bump Fay up too, because he only threw like 58 pitches when we were at Florida the week before, and he felt great. So we felt like, all right, yeah, he's fine to do that. Riley and him are just very different arms. Riley's, it's power, man. It's real power. It's a lot of effort, and it's smooth and it's clean, but there's no finesse to it. And so he went on a full workload at Florida. We were going to have to bump him up 2 days early. So I told when he mentioned it to me, because Colson Buchanan came up to me, MVP on day one. He said, if we win today, Riley's going to be banging on your door to pitch tomorrow. I said, well, we'll see. And so he got out and played catch, and it was just like, he looked at me, like Riley looked at me. He's like, I'm not ready. And then I knew he wouldn't be. He was sore, like not pain at all, just sore and didn't feel right. And, if we're in a situation where we're fighting for our tournament lives, like to play the next week, you may be a little bit more aggressive with it, but we were in. Did we all want to host? There's no question. Did winning that game against Tennessee help us host? Yeah, probably, no question. But at the end of the day, like, I wasn't willing to put that young man in a bad situation, in a risky situation when we desperately need him. So, yes, it was one of those things. It was not difficult at all not to pitch him. Everybody kind of wore me out about it, which is fine. But was it difficult to not pitch him? Because it was the clear right decision. But you wish you could have pitched him, if that makes sense. Like,
no, yeah,
that's where you wish if you have the bye, everything lines up. You get the bye, you go Fay him on game 2, and you're rolling. But I knew it was going to be a bear to get him back when we were playing on Tuesday. We were going to need to buy a day so we could get him against Texas on Thursday, and we just couldn't quite get there.
And then, Coach, this is Rob Vaughn, as we are finishing our conversation, previewing the regional in Hattiesburg. The lineup this year, Coach, a little bit deeper group, 1 through 9. I thought another positive sign in Hoover was Brady Neal, the way he swung the bat. He had a big home run against Missouri. I thought he swung the bat well. Talk about your hitters in this lineup facing Miami and then going forward. Last year, you lost a little bit of a slugfest in game 1, 8-7. It took a lot out of the group. But again, a lot of that had to do too with the pitching depth that you had available. But now you're better on the back end. Osmer's one of the best in the country. But talk about your lineup facing Miami and how you think your guys are swinging the bat right now.
Yeah, I mean, I got to say, and our guys hear me say it all the time, so, man, sometimes you just need your best players to be your best players. And that's our game, right? Like, that's how it works. And so, obviously, the big key is the top 4 of those guys in the order are going to have to go have good weekends. That's just the nature of it. We all know that. They know that. Like, Fowler, Braun, Snell, Bono, like, we will go as those guys go, and we're going to need those guys to come out and play good baseball. And then I think on top of that, you really like Hodo there in the 5. It's an experienced kid. He's a Mississippi kid. He'll be going back home. He's a senior. He is Mr. Everything. Like, he's who I want my kid to be when he grows up, is Will Hodo. Like, that's that kid. And so he's had a great year for us to slug the baseball. He's done some of that. And I think 2 guys, you hit the nail on the head on 2 guys that I thought were really good in Hoover. that we need to just keep being productive there was Brady Neal. And then I thought Brennan Norton getting back into the lineup and providing some really, really good defense at second base, but also some really big at-bats for us, too. He had some huge ones early. You know, we forget because he kind of scuffled there for about a month in the middle of the year, but, you know, that guy hit the go-ahead home run at Texas A&M on Friday night to kick off conference playoff off one of their guys, you know, and so it's getting him back in the mix. It provides really good defense at second base, and he's started having some really good at bats for us as well. So those kind of, you need your guys to be the guys. Like, that's the key. Your best guys got to be your best guys, and then we need some of those guys at the kind of in the bottom of the order, the DH spot, whether that's Staten, whether that's Bull, Brady Neal, Brennan Norton. We need productive at bats out of them. Is it going to be great if they go hit 4 homers and get 7 hits? That's awesome. I'd love that. But I just need productive, tough ABs out of those guys down there, and I trust that we're going to be ready for it.
Yeah, we say it all the time on this show, and I mean, you are a coach, so obviously you know better than we do. How important is it, though, to get that first game in regional play?
Yeah, huge.
Yeah, you know, from a strictly logistical standpoint, this is going to be an unpopular opinion. From a logistical standpoint, it really doesn't matter if you win game 1 or game 2, you're in the exact same place. From a mental standpoint, of a confidence, of a we're playing good baseball, of that standpoint, it's vital to go get game 1. You know, like, because that's the thing. Like, you're in a situation right there. If you lose either of the first 2, you're going to be in the loser's bracket, having to work your way back through there. And depending on what happens, you could be facing a 1 or a 4, whatever it is. You could be in a weird spot there. But from a logistical standpoint, there's really not much of a difference in losing game 1 and game 2. You're kind of in the same spot. However, just from you walk into a foreign park against an opponent in a tournament setting, your psyche matters and your mental mindset matters. And if you go lay an egg in game 1, which is, you saw that last year with us, we didn't necessarily lay an egg. We just got outlasted a little bit and couldn't finish it. And it just is such a gut punch going into game 2 because it's such a daunting road in front of you, especially on a team like last year where we just didn't have a whole lot of arms in the stable there at the end. So knowing what was in front of us was a pretty daunting task. But to me, the mental piece of getting game 1 is huge. It sets the tone for the weekend. It sets the tone that you're ready to play. And I mean, that's the key to winning a regional. And very frankly, I mean, is being 2-0 and playing on Sunday. So you can't go 2-0 unless you go 1-0 to start. So we're gonna empty it. We're gonna do everything we can to go take care of Miami on Friday afternoon out there, and then we'll take it from there.
Riley Quick will be on the mound 2:00 Central Time. That will be the first pitch, as Alabama will be in Hattiesburg and the regional over there, trying to make a run under the second year of Coach Rob Vaughn. Coach, we really appreciate the time. You're always very generous with and I know it's a very busy schedule now. Safe travels to Hattiesburg, and we look forward to hopefully a great weekend for the Crimson Tide. Thank you, sir.
Yeah, appreciate you guys. Roll Tide.
Thanks, Rob Vaughn, kind enough to join us. Let's get that break in. Wrap it all up next.
Yeah.
You're listening to Talkin' Ball on 97.7 ESPN, The Zone.
You've seen those beautiful epoxy floors in a garage or carport area and have probably wondered, how can I get that done? Well, the answer is Lifetime Epoxy Floors. Lifetime Epoxy Floors is an A-plus rated business with the Better Business Bureau and has been family-owned for over 14 years. They do both residential and commercial applications and get most jobs done in a day. Lifetime Epoxy Floors' motto is, we love what we do, and it shows. Visit lifetimeepoxyfloors.com to schedule a free estimate today and check them out on Facebook.
This segment of Talkin' Ball is brought to you by University Kia, the #1 volume Kia dealer in the state of Alabama. Located online at universitykia.com. It's time for tomorrow's headlines today with Scott Theisen and Drew DeArmond on 97.7 ESPN The Zone.
Well, welcome back. Talking Ball, 97.7 ESPN The Zone. By the way, it is the 28th A lot of people.
Yeah.
Keeping an eye on the deadline to withdraw your name.
It's today.
It's
sometime
tonight at
today.
midnight.
Is it midnight?
Midnight.
So we're going to hear something about Tahad Pettiford.
That is why people are paying attention.
We haven't heard anything else.
It's been ghostly quiet. So
Brian
Pettiford,
said yesterday he was leaning toward him staying now, but I mean, we'll see. Is Tahad coming or going?
well, we'll find out when you join us tomorrow morning at 7 o'clock. We can let you know if you don't want to hang around till midnight.
Yeah.
Talking Ball 97.7.
That's a song, I think.
What?
Till midnight. We're going to let it all hang out after midnight. After midnight. You know. I don't know.
Have you ever been to a karaoke bar?
Hell no. I didn't go to that crap. They do that sometimes at SEC media days. I'm not getting up there singing.
SportsMed is the official team physicians of the Rocket City Trash Pandas. And if the pros trust SportsMed, you can too. SportsMed provides every service you might need for complete orthopedic care, specializing in orthopedic surgery, sports medicine, joint replacement, spine surgery, neurosurgery, and podiatry. And they offer their own brace shop, in-house full-body MRI, physical